Tuesday. Welcome to the Tuesday Talk Show. I'm your host, Lindsay Woods, on KRFC, Fort Collins 88.9 FM, and I invite you to join me this next half hour when we talk about things that matter. And today we're talking about things that matter around the community, interesting people, places, and things that hopefully have an impact on us all. And especially today, I have two guests with me today, two lovely women who are both enormously talented and very, very creative. My first guest is Sharon Dew, and Sharon is a documentary filmmaker. She's also the owner, director, and producer of Be Real Pictures. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Lindsay.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you, and thanks for having us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And along with Sharon, I have Mona Masser here, who is also a filmmaker. She is also the owner, director, and producer of Parthena Productions. Now, I met the two of you over at FCPAN, which is Fort Collins Public Access Network, I don't know, about a year ago. And I was very impressed with the work you were doing. How did you two meet each other?
Well, it was kind of funny. I was working at FCPAN for 4 months. There was some money for me to intern there, actually through Larimer County Workforce Center, which was awesome because I wanted to work in my field. And that's how I met Mona. And
you did a lot of great projects for us over there. And
thanks.
It was great to have you.
But it was funny when I met Mona. I remember you were sitting at the edit bay, one of the edit bays, and she said, "Oh, you're the person I'm supposed to meet." And she had my business card.
Yeah, a friend of mine a few months ago had given me your business card, and I put it on my desk thinking, oh, I have to call this woman, and then it just kind of got underneath all my piles of papers. And it took a while to figure out that you're the person that my friend said, oh, you guys got to hook up because you both do the same kind of work. And since then, we've sort of pooled our resources and have worked on projects together.
Well, now the two of you are co-producing a film, right?
Yes.
And I really like this. I took this off your website, and we'll tell the listeners how to get to your website in a moment. But you both share an interest in producing stories that blast perspectives. I love that. And connect people, making them rethink their views on different issues, right? Your mission is to tell the other side of the story, connecting, inspiring, and empowering people and communities. That is fabulous.
There's a lot of media out there these days. Internet, news, TV. Probably more people get their news from the internet these days.
Well, how is this different than
because
the news?
You don't often hear about things that aren't sensational, and you don't often hear the positive stories. And sometimes people or groups of people are vilified in the news, and you don't really get an opportunity to hear from them. I think that when we hear from people and why they do the things they do, it gives us an opportunity to connect with them, to appreciate them and why they do what they do, and also to make the world a smaller place, invite people into our own community. And so that's why I like to tell the other side.
Now, you have a Kickstart project going on, and I didn't know what Kickstart was. So for our listeners, what is Kickstart?
Kickstarter is a website that basically helps artists or, folks want to fund their projects. There's a variety of projects on there. It's actually a lot of fun to get on Kickstarter and see what different projects people are trying to fund. And so we decided to come up with a campaign for a story that Sherry started, and it just grew. The project just kept getting bigger and bigger, and we were thinking, how are we going to fund this? So we decided to do a Kickstarter campaign, and Sherry did all the work on our campaign for that.
So what's the project?
It's called Beyond the Breadline, and we've got a little trailer on Kickstarter that's 3 minutes long, which is called The Breadline because that tells the beginning of the story, and which actually started with me turning some adversity in my life into creativity and productivity.
Can you tell us what happened comfortably?
Yeah, sure. I've already come out with the trailer as being somebody that might be called, poor or in poverty, although I don't feel like that at all because I do have a house in Fort Collins, and sometimes I have trouble paying the mortgage, and I did have trouble paying the mortgage for several months. I was worried about losing my house, and I was, having trouble making ends meet. So I have 2 teenage boys. So I started using the food bank to try, I realized I was running out of bread, and I didn't have, the stuff to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for my son for school and things like that. So I started using the food bank. I didn't tell my kids about it.
Why not?
I was kind of embarrassed that I couldn't make ends meet. And I had my own business in video production and had some success. But when it got closer to the holidays, started running out of work. I did a lot of marketing and still nothing. And then I realized I better get a job to supplement my business. And the job market, wow. I mean, I have never had trouble finding a job in my life except now. And I've been, searching for a job for several months.
And I can attest, she has applied for so many jobs, and she keeps telling me, oh, I've got an interview. It went really well. I think I'm going to get this job. And then a few days later, she'll say, oh, I didn't get that job. And
I make a new tailored resume and a new cover letter. I think I have 8 resumes. I had a gap in employment when I was home with kids, which I was very fortunate to be for many years. And but I have 3 college degrees.
Amazing.
So, and I've applied for, I think, 35 positions in the school district that are $10, $13.
Do you think you scare them away because you're overqualified? You look overqualified?
I hope not.
But it's tough. It's tough for everybody out there.
It is so tough. I get positive feedback from the interviews, but then I hear, well, there were so many applicants that were qualified.
So you had to go to the food bank.
So I was going to the food bank and found it to be quite different than I ever imagined it to be. And it was a friend of mine who said, you need to make a film about this. And I was also researching poverty statistics because I was curious about how I had grown up middle class, and my income is definitely well below the poverty level. And I wasn't prepared for this. I never thought that I would get a job. I probably should, or wouldn't be able to get a job. Probably should have been more prepared.
Well, I don't know why we weren't raised like that. I mean, you'd figure if you had 1 college degree, you'd be fine. If you had multiple college degrees,
Right.
How could you not be fine?
I know that's what my mother says.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't believe my college-educated daughter can't get a job.
Well, exactly. It's tough. And I saw on your trailer, too, that the participants, or whatever the terminology is for people in food banks, has gone up by 46%.
Yes, 46% across the nation increase in food bank use. And also, you'll see in the trailer that 36.1% of those people who use food banks have at least 1 employed adult in their household.
Which means that they're not making enough money to support the family or the rest
Exactly.
of the household.
It started out to be something, okay, let's do it about the people, new clients of the food bank. And it's hard to find people who will talk on camera.
Why is that, do you think? For the same reason that you were
For the same
embarrassed?
reason I didn't tell my kids for a while about it. And I didn't tell a lot of people about it. And also, people are looking for jobs, and they're worried about any kind of a stigma attached to it. And a lot of times when I would ask people, I would tell them, I'm a client of the food bank too, and I'm making a film about people who've just, found themselves in need of the food bank services, recently unemployed. Would you be willing to talk on camera? Most of the time I would hear, if they didn't say no outright, that they had a job, that they already had a job. And they would, sheepishly tell me, oh, I have a job, but I don't make enough. So,
do they check you at the food bank and ask you if you have a job?
Yeah, they
or
do.
Are there rules?
Oh, no, you have to you have to prove your income, show pay stubs or whatever, or that you have none. And
so it is okay to have a job and go to the
absolutely
food bank as long as
you're below a certain income level. And our Larimer County Food Bank is awesome. Corey Johnston over there, who deals with the media, has been really supportive of this project. And I'm going to be interviewing Amy Pisani, the executive director of the food bank, on Thursday. And she's going to give us the national perspective. So,
I was impressed on your trailer of the food bank, because those are some of the shots from our food bank here in Fort Collins, the Larimer County Food Bank, wasn't it?
And it's really like a grocery store. I know you said you were curious about it, and a lot of people are curious because they've never been there, and I was too. In the trailer, I have a picture from 1932 of the bread line from the Depression. And it's not like that where people are being handed stuff. People can shop. And sometimes there are limits, like in certain coolers, they'll say take one item per family or take what you need for your family. It's a little scarce on produce sometimes in the winter, but in the harvest season, Grant Family Farms in Wellington, they let the Food Bank of Larimer County, all the volunteers go and glean all the produce left in the fields after the harvest.
Isn't that wonderful?
Great.
It's wonderful.
I mean,
and
you talk about giving back to the community.
It's great. Some people in Larimer County and in Fort Collins who are gardeners grow a little extra food and give it to the food bank. So that's something that gardeners can do. And the food bank is just one example of a locally sourced, locally funded organization, grassroots organization that works for the community. There's excess, and they pick up things from grocery stores, even from Walmart, from Safeway, King Soopers.
I was so surprised the day we went in there at how I'd never been there either. And we went in to shoot that day, and the warehouse and all the food they have and all their volunteers, and it's really, really impressive.
The reason we call it Beyond the Breadline is because we start in the trailer with these grim statistics on poverty. 16.1% of the American population falls below the poverty level right now. That's 49.1 million people, the most ever in Census Bureau record-keeping history.
And that was in 2010.
Yes.
2010.
And it may even be more because there's this ripple effect from the recession. And we're not hearing about all of it. They use unemployment insurance statistics. And some people, their benefits have run out, but they've given up on looking for a job. So how do they make it? Who knows? I mean, you hear stories about families living in their cars after foreclosure. Here in Fort Collins, too.
Is that the other side of the story that you're trying to tell?
No, the other side.
The other side?
The other side is that the people of this country, little pockets of people, are not waiting for the federal government to solve the problems. There's obstructionism, government, gridlock. It's just, and Congress has a great health care plan. I'd like to see them have the health care plan that they would vote in for the U.S. citizens. So it was Mona who really said, we've got to tell a positive story. And I said, you're right. And there are all these things that...
There's so many community groups right here that are doing positive things in different ways. There's Transition Fort Collins, which is a group that is sort of getting started right now. Sherry and I attended one of their meetings. And transition towns do all sorts of things that try to promote sustainability and self-sufficiency, which is exactly the kind of stories we want to tell. There's a lot of groups in Fort Collins and around, all around the country that are, doing these kinds of little community projects that have the think locally, act locally.
Right.
And they need a voice. They need the spotlight shown on them a little bit.
They do. It's an opportunity to look at all of these programs all over the country that practice the principle that Gandhi talked about, which is called Swadeshi. And it's a Sanskrit word which swa means own and desh means country. So it's really of one's own country or one's own place. And it's a move back to localism.
Being self-sufficient.
Absolutely. People want to be self-sufficient. And in some ways, third world countries have a leg up on us here in the U.S. They haven't gotten a handout from their government, and they can't rely on their governments to help them be self-sufficient or to give. They need to bring themselves up, and they rely on communities, their own communities. So Kiva, which is a micro-lending agency, helps people get started in the third world in their businesses, and they pay the loans back. In fact, it's women who are really driving this effort all over the world. The Heifer Project.
Yeah, what's the Heifer Project?
That's another way for people to be self-sufficient. You can donate a flock of chickens or a goat or a cow, depending on how much you want to spend, to a family who needs it.
In this country or worldwide?
In a third world country, usually. And then they can breed the goat. They can sell the milk. They can, use the milk for their family. Yeah, right. Eat and start a business.
Exactly.
Both things.
Yeah,
with the chickens.
But sort of what we wanted to show is that we can do a lot of community service in our own community. And there are a lot of studies that say the more you're involved in the community, the happier you are.
This economic distress has really brought people together in many ways. There's a trend that we'll talk about in the film of multi-generations moving back in together. I know a family, and I'm hoping that they're going to be willing to be on camera right here in Fort Collins, and the father lost his job, and the mother does commercial cleaning. So she doesn't make a lot of money, but she works really hard. And the daughter has a part-time job. The son's doing pretty well. They were all struggling to make the rent, so they decided to get a 3-bedroom apartment and move all back in together. And I want to follow up with them and find out how that's working out. But that is a trend in the U.S. There's a big increase in families living back together out of necessity. Now, we say out of necessity, but one of the problems that we've had with the way our economy has gone and the market forces being kind of invisible, where we don't have a marketplace to go to and do business, but it's the stock market and it's the global economy, is isolation. And that's one of the biggest drawbacks of our current economy.
Mm-hmm. Depression.
Yeah, depression and isolation for people. Mm-hmm. So bringing back local economies really gives us a connection to place. Poverty, what is poverty? Poverty is so relative, really. I mean, we may still be under the poverty level monetarily.
But we have so much.
Right, but we can feed ourselves. We have a good roof over our heads.
We have a different definition here than we do in a third world
Absolutely.
country. In some instances, not in all.
Right. I had a friend pitch an idea to me at a holiday party recently, and she said, so many people in our town have extra rooms, extra space. She said, I want to create a program, a network of people with extra space in their homes that they can house a family, maybe in one room, or an individual who's homeless, either for very little rent or nothing temporarily until they can get back on their feet, and where there'd be a matching program. We could screen people. And she said, but I don't want to do it by myself. I need another person to do it with.
So create a community out of that.
Right. This film, what we want to do is empower people, like my friend who has this idea.
That's great.
We want to empower people all over the country to let them know that this is happening, and this is how we take our government back with the power of the people. It comes from the people and grows from there. And then the politicians who are kind of doing their thing in Washington, they don't really know what's going on, but here's what's going on, and it's actually good.
Yeah, I think of my family back in Nebraska in a small town of less than 400 people, and my grandparents and my aunts and uncles had the richest community. They were always part of what was going on, and my grandparents on the other side that lived in Denver had very little community. So
it's interesting.
I just think it's really interesting what community is and how it feels good to be part of a community and be part of a solution and part of helping folks in their own community.
Yeah, and in a way, you wonder if it's part of the internet and the global expansion, like you mentioned, is getting people to feel so isolated because you can reach out and touch someone through the internet, which isn't really reaching out and touching anybody.
On the other hand, the internet can connect us in ways that we never had the opportunity to connect before. We can find out about these programs. We can be empowered and inspired by it.
True, very true.
And anybody who has an idea can put it out there and get support for it. So
now, if somebody wants to connect with you and Mona in your project, let's put it like that.
Okay.
What would be the simplest thing that we could tell our listeners where they could go, probably on the internet, since we were just talking about that?
Well, the simplest thing, go to Kickstarter.com and search Beyond the Breadline. Or you could go to my website, www.bereelpictures, BEREEL, pictures.com. And it's on the front page of the website, and there's a link. Or you could go to YouTube and search Be Real Pictures, and Beyond the Breadline is on there. So, and we've only got 2 weeks left. We are.
Oh, tell me about how the funding's going.
Well,
what are you doing?
We're asking for $5,500, which we thought was a manageable amount. It's only a start, but it will get us traveling to a couple of cities in the country where we can showcase some of these urban farming programs where they're taking city lots that were vacant in housing projects and teaching people how to garden and feed themselves so nobody will go hungry. So it'll get us telling some of these bigger stories that are invisible. And from that, we're going to take it to Women Make Movies. We're going to look for grants. We just want to tell these positive stories. You can give as little as $1 to the Kickstarter campaign, and you'll be a backer.
Yeah, and then you'll get our updates on how we're doing.
We do tell you what's going on. We're going to post some more videos in the interviews. The important thing about it is, one of the important things is if we don't make the whole amount, we don't get anything.
Where are you now? Can I ask you where you're now?
Right now we have about $500.
Mm-hmm. The money doesn't get taken out of your account until our project is funded.
And we're going to work on other ways to make the film anyway. We're not going to let money stop us. That's an illustration of people's talents and gifts are out there, and people want to be recognized for their talents and gifts, for their creativity. Money is not the only currency.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And we need to bring that back.
And we want to know more stories. If people hear this and know of a local community story where people are helping out in all sorts of areas of, transportation or energy or housing, we want to know about them.
Right. So get in touch with us through Kickstarter. You can leave a comment on our project, or you can leave a comment. You can contact
Be Real Pictures,
Be
Real Pictures, or Beyond the Breadline, if that's easier to remember. And listeners, thank you so much for joining us this evening on the Tuesday Talk Show. Sherry and Mona, it's impressive to have you here. You are two very, very talented ladies in and of yourselves. And together, the power of the two of you working together is just impressive. It really is. I wish you all the luck.
Thanks, Lindsay.
We are better together. We're much better together.
We work really well together.
We do.
I love it. I love collaborative working.
And listeners, if you would like to donate to their project, go to Be Real Productions. Or if you'd like to donate to KRFC, please visit our website at krfcfm.org. There are two very good reasons to spread some cheer this holiday season and help two really good projects. My name is Lindsay Woods. I thank you for listening. This has been the Tuesday Talk Show. Please stay tuned for Imagine Action.